So the safeguarding children duties owed by Tower Hamlets, the local council, were betrayed in relation to the rights and entitlements to being safeguarded by the four girls, the four children, that between 2014 and February 2015 were reportedly found to have left the UK and gone to, quote, Syria, and reportedly to have joined what is called the Daesh in the Middle East and what is known as ISIS elsewhere. Now, we assert on the evidence that no democratic consent existed or does exist among the Muslim communities in the Middle East, in the Arab countries, and elsewhere for the establishment at whatever level of competence of anything that claims to be based on Islam and actioned or activated or operated to promote any cause for harming people. That there is no democratic known consent. There is no known evidence of any person or persons seeking to consult ordinary Muslims or any known identifiable Muslim person who can be then acted on if evidence exists that they did give any opinion claiming to be the opinion based on strict adherence to the rules and requirements of Islam. That is the international statement. And we make this because there is no evidence that exists that we can access in the public domain by using the ordinary search engines. We have no access to any unknown secret operation or operative device or links or connections that can yield the truth other than what we have stated. So if you narrow it down to the UK and the several million Muslims in the UK, the requirement on those who say that these four children in Tower Hamlets, betrayed by Tower Hamlets Council, had any connection with any known, identifiable, publicly identifiable Muslim anywhere in the UK in connection with whatever they did, these four girls, these four children, prior to their actual physical departure out of the UK. And this assertion is based on the fact that none of the immediate biological families of any of these girls or four of these girls has been arrested or charged or tried for any offense. Any offense. And we repeat, any offense, let alone specific offense of terrorism. So, Where is the evidence that these girls, that these children who are Muslim or Islamic community representatives, in the fantasy created about them, around them, of them being terrorists? The only negative thing that can be established against these girls is the attribution to them of other people's opinions against them. And this includes the Anthony Lloyd interview, so-called, and the BBC's claims. But the BBC have not produced any direct statement from any of the girls at any stage that suggests, let alone actually asserts, any right to commit any offense on their parts, those girls, anywhere. We have mentioned already the fact that Shamima Begum has been reportedly kind of put on the record as having said that she was not fazed by the sight of the victims of some awful cruelty and murder. We shall come for the evidential, legal reasons. We shall come to the details of that on another occasion, because it will take a long time to just list the various factors and the elements and components. So these are the one side. These are the issues about the actual relationship and assertions about terrorism. What we are currently creating is a fact-based evidential profile of Shamima Begum and her three friends as children who are owed and were owed duties of very serious safeguarding by the local Tower Hamlets Council, or the local Tower Hamlets councils, if any of those girls actually lived in another borough other than Tower Hamlets. So we are starting from the point of their being children, literally children, and in need of protection. And the range and the actual details of the activities that constitute or would have constituted protection, of course, is wide, as wide as the actual reality of the situation at any given point, at any given time, affecting those children's various kind of states of being. And what we are asking publicly and putting it to the Tower Hamlets Council or any other council concerned, but Tower Hamlets Council is the one that we are confidently, factually able to identify and name. So what were the actions or activities or the kind of mechanism or the steps and the procedures, if any of those were actually put in place? What were they in Tower Hamlets Council and put in place by Tower Hamlets Council? What were they? Because it's not a theoretical discussion. It is a factual discussion. It's examining the evidence and demanding the answers from the Tower Hamlets Council. If Tower Hamlets Council continues to stay silent, then it must make available publicly and immediately any legal ground or basis for, in effect, staying silent. I mean, the duty of safeguarding children owed to these 4 children could not be put at a higher level of gravity and seriousness. Because what Sajid Javid did, and the video still available, accessible, shows the expression on Sajid Javid's face. The expression is not of one of a person being concerned about the safeguarding and safety of the rest of population that he claimed were under threat from Shamima Begum. The facial expression on Sajid Javid's face is one of venom aimed at a combination of a Muslim Bangladeshi child who would be the easiest to target for venom and hatred directed at her, even without any of the alleged allegations against her. Even in her own right, she would be targeted. And the venom on the face of Sajid Javid at that moment constitutes the venom of a racist, not the expression of a son of a Pakistani bus driver. Now, this is the very serious point that we are making, because Sajid Javid, not long after he was appointed Home Secretary, that is the Interior Minister in the UK. Interior Minister is what the post is known as in most of the countries in the world. And so those who are watching this, whatever time and wherever, and are not in the UK and are not familiar with the UK so-called conventions, rather than the unwritten constitution, should know that the Home Secretary, or the Secretary of State for Home Affairs, to give it the title, is in fact the Minister for the Interior. And when Sajid Javid made that announcement in the House of Commons against Shamima Begum, the venom on his face was one of complete spite and hatred that the likes of Tommy Robinson, aka John Yaxley Lennon, who has just been found to have lied to the police. He's a serial liar, serial anti-Muslim liar. So Sajid Javid complained shortly after becoming Theresa May's Home Secretary that he was being unfairly attacked by people calling him a coconut. I said in my speech, anniversary speech at the Altavali Park on the 4th of May, 2018, that if Sajid Javid felt that he was wrongly accused of being a coconut or called a coconut, then he must behave in a way that doesn't justify anyone calling him a coconut. Now, this Supreme Court appeal by the Home Office was an appeal continuing the venomous decision made by Sajid Javid, the son of a Pakistani bus driver, behaving in the most racist, anti-Muslim and corrupt way, and justifying himself as being the acceptable face of an ethnic minority, so-called member of the conservative cause. Now, many people in this country, most of them not Bangladeshi, in fact, none of them Bangladeshi. I'm the only Bangladeshi that is making any comment about this in this way at all, and I have been since the reports began to appear about these girls having left the UK in February and 2015 and enter the so-called ISIS territory. As a Muslim, I totally reject anyone claiming any justification for acts of terror against innocent people, people who are not combatants in any attacks on the Muslims whatsoever. This may sound complicated, but it isn't, because society and security in societies depends on the total, actual commitment to everyone's safety. Everyone's safety, regardless of what faith or no faith background or identity they have. And I was the one who went on live television, if you like, on a program days after the Woolwich murder of the British soldier by these two Africans origin persons. I was the one who condemned the whole thing. And I still do, and I shall continue to do that. As the saying summed it up, and it is in the Holy Quran, Lakum Deenukum Waliyadeen. It's coexistence, tolerating each other's faith in the context of faith, but the same thing extends to people of no faith as well. So that's the basis of the faith, the Islamic faith, not violating somebody else's faith or violating somebody who has no faith. It has no basis in Islam, and it shall not be allowed to be abused. So when the propaganda machines in Fleet Street and elsewhere began to pump out the lies that these people committing violence against other people, people of other religions or other backgrounds, were Islamic in any way, they were lying. As I said before, there is no evidence, there is no record of any consent, let alone even any attempt to secure any consent from or by the many, by the majority, by the overwhelming majority, by all the Muslims on public record. And this extends to every act of so-called Islamic terrorism anywhere. We condemn terrorism by anyone causing and claiming to be doing this in the name of Islam. No. And we go back to the basic meaning of Islam, which is peace. It's not a joke. It's not a banner. It is the faith for peace. And it must not be treated with that contemptible distortion and violence. There is no record of abuse of Islam by perpetrators of crime of any scale having achieved any good for anyone. And we say that, and we shall say that. So having said all of that, we come back to Tower Hamlets and the brazen betrayal of duty. According to the, quote, law of the UK and international law, even if there was no level of safeguarding children, there still would be the duty to safeguard children. And those children, 4 of them, as far as publicly known so far, up to today, up to this time, those 4 children, all of them girls, were terribly, terribly, terribly betrayed and their lives destroyed. And Dominic Carciani, who is the BBC's reporter, who fronted a package against Shamima Begum after the ruling by the Supreme Court on the 26th of February 2021. Dominic Carciani is a crass, racist, stupid, ignorant moron. His package is a pack of lies and stupidity and ignorance and corruption and misinformation and fabrication and distortion and misrepresentation of what the rule of law, due process, and so on mean and constitute and represent. Of course, he didn't mention Tower Hamlets Council. Of course, he didn't even refer to the whatever link or linkages had existed that led to the result of these 4 girls going to Syria. And he most certainly didn't refer to the Tower Hamlets Council's duties as owed to these children under safeguarding children's duties. Now, our campaign knows for a fact or knows the facts about many, many, many instances of Tower Hamlets Council showing 2 fingers to that duty regarding other children's states of various states of being in need of help and in need of safeguarding. One very brazen instance emerged during the quote semi-campaign about the racist killers and murderers of Shiblu Rahman. This became a topic because of a still mysterious to us, that is, it may not be mysterious to others, but to us it is still a mystery as to how the racist and anti-Muslim propaganda operative Ted Jury came to put a byline piece on the Independent Online about one of the racist killers of Shiblu Rahman, Ian Devlin, being found to have been employed at the Ian Mikado School for Special Needs Children. That was in June 2016, and that was published during the month of Ramadan. And there was a meeting as a result of that, or as that meeting was connected. That meeting was, let's say, convened and organized on the back of that item by Ted Jury in the Independent Online. I didn't see Ted Jury present at that meeting, but I knew that people present at that meeting or gathering must have included a person or more than one person who gave that information to Ted Jury. As the Khoodeelaar campaign has made known hundreds of times since that meeting, the meeting was a completely dishonestly organized stunt, ignorantly organized stunt. And when they gave the pride of platform to the racist John Biggs, if there was any doubt as to the stupidity of that particular set of people, that doubt was totally removed. One man, Azmal Hussain, actually brushed past me as he was zealous to be seen to be rushing to the feet of John Biggs. Azmal Hussain would not do that in another situation, but he was quite happy to physically brush past me as he rushed to be seen sitting at the feet of John Biggs. Ajmal Hussain is one of the people who has been kind of featured by Fleet Street as having been the selfless, principled campaigners against corruption in Tower Hamlets, especially around Lutfur Rahman and his corruption. And here was Ajmal Hussain brushing past me and rushing to be seen to be sitting at the feet of the midget, John Biggs. I'm calling him midget, not diminutive, because diminutive is the word that has been used by the Guardian writer who wrote a piece about Biggs, probably on the 18th of April, 2018. So that was 2 years before the diminutive word. But John Biggs is not a man of any ethical or moral height, and he is not a man of physical height either. So Ajmal Hussain was quite keen to be seen to be sitting next to John Biggs. And what Ajmal Hussain did was then deliver a stupid, ignorant, idiotic quote threat against Claire Lilly. Claire Lilly, in post at the time as the head of the Ian McArthur School and the woman who had actually been accused by more than one individual of having facilitated the employment of the racist killer Ian Devlin. The reason I'm referring to all of that is because at the time, I think for a few weeks, the various references made to Ian Devlin being found to be employed at the Ian McArthur School contained the references to the fact that under the same Claire Lilly, many children requiring special needs education and protection, if you like, were being badly treated or being ignored or being mistreated. And that more than one parent of those children or such children was also in dispute with Claire Lilly over various allegations that the parents made against Claire Lilly. And so, and all of this is about and was about Tower Hamlets Council failing its safeguarding children duties. So what I'm saying is that the fact that Tower Hamlets Council betrayed these children, these girls, and the betrayal occurred by the council failing its duties owed to the children under safeguarding children duties. These things show that Tower Hamlets Council has a pattern, that it's a negligent, failing local council. It fails its legal duties. It's not a kind of casual remark. It is a remark about the clear pattern of Tower Hamlets Council failing its safeguarding children duties. So that meeting was held, I think, on 16th of June 2016. 16 or 17 or 18. Any of those 3 dates, not another one, I think. Well, 16, 17, 18. And I shall check and we shall see if I have got the dates wrong, then I shall be updating and correcting that unintended error. So that meeting took place in June, let's say middle of June 2016. And allegedly, as a result of that meeting, certain individuals, not myself, certain individuals who were present at that meeting organized a petition to be presented to the July meeting that was held or was scheduled to be held. July 2016, that was the year. And one of the people present, or one of the people involved in making the claim that there would be a petition demanding the removal of Ian Devlin and removal of Claire Lilly, or resignation of Claire Lilly. One of the persons who was in communication with me calls himself Advocate Anis Rahman, or Anis Rahman PhD, Advocate Anis Rahman or Anis Rahman PhD. And it is a fact that this individual has been known to be a part of the very small number of individuals operating with Abbas Uddin alias Halal. Now, Abbas Uddin alias Halal claims to have been, in his career as a councillor, he's no longer a councillor, but his career as a councillor from the Brick Lane area on Tower Hamlets, to have been 4 times leader of the Labour Party group, or the Labour group on Tower Hamlets Council. The idea behind that reference is actually rooted, founded deeply in the fact that most of the people that kind of claim is intended to impress are already predisposed to take a lie as the truth and be impressed by the fact that he was 4 times leader of the Labour group in Tower Hamlets Council, or on Tower Hamlets Council. The factual, the evidence, the truth-based retort and rejection of that kind of claim is that what, if anything, did he do for the community, for democracy, for accountability at any time while he was, quote, leader of the Labour group? And by definition, because of the numbers, leader of the Tower Hamlets Council at the given time, whenever it came to be the case. Now, this I am saying as a fact that is undeniable. What did he do? If he did anything, and I'm not ruling out the possibility that he may have done something while leader, what exactly did Abbasuddin alias Halal do? Did he, for example, raise the questions while he was still a councillor, while still leader of the Labour group and not in power, because following the, quote, election of Lutfur Rahman as the so-called mayor in the name of Tower Hamlets in October 2010, Abbasuddin alias Halal was on the opposition side. He was a councillor. Now, did his activities as an elected councillor, and in terms of the claim that he was 4 times leader of the Labour group, his being thus correctly labelable as a senior Labour councillor? So as a senior labor councillor, did Abbasuddin alias Halal know about the council's duties as owed to the children, whoever those children were in the borough? Did he know that in October 2010? Did he know that in 2011, in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015? Did you know that? If he knew that, what actions did he seek to see the council take? What inquiries, if any, did Halaluddin or Abbasuddin alias Halal make of what employee, in what capacity, in post in Tower Hamlets Council at those times between October 2010 up to February 2015? What did he put as a question to these employees? And did he frame those questions by carefully applying the safeguarding the children duties as owed to the children by the council? Did he do that? And will he be able to confirm what, if any, questions he, Abbasuddin alias Halal, put to the employees of the council around and about safeguarding the children and around the duties owed by the council to the children under the safeguarding the children duties? As we have been saying, anything we say and anything we say may contain appearance of being kind of quite strong in our wording. Is not anything to do with any agenda other than the legal, the ethical, the moral agenda that we have in pursuing these questions and putting these questions. Now, here is a brief kind of look at the safeguarding the children duties. And there are of course, similar to the safeguarding children duties, there are safeguarding adults duties as well. So for example, the CARE Act 2014 sets out a clear legal requirement framework for how local authorities, that is local councils such as Tower Hamlets Council and other parts of the system, should protect adults. This is the Adults Act. But the Safeguarding Children Act is similar. Let's go to the actual safeguarding children duties. So this safeguarding children and child protection is the action that is taken to promote the welfare of children and protect them from harm. Protecting children from abuse and maltreatment, preventing harm to children's health or development, ensuring children grow up with the provision of safe and effective care. And there are, under that, there are 63 million results under the search term or phrase safeguarding children. 63 million. 63 million 600,000. The result is found in 61 seconds. That is just over a minute. So there is a lot of material about safeguarding children. And we don't have to justify referring to that because it is a very important framework. So what did Abbasuddin Elias Halal ask the Armed Council at any point during October 2010 and February 2015? Whether he was in post as councillor during that period or not makes no difference, because as a senior councillor, for as long as he was, he had a personal duty to the community. What did he ask? If he didn't ask any question, why? How does that failure relate to his boast and his claim and propaganda line that on as many as 4 occasions he was successfully chosen as the leader of the Labour group by his fellow Labour Party councillors or Town Council? How does the link work? Does it matter that as many as 4 children's lives have been destroyed now because there is nothing known in public as to whether Tower Hamlets Council carried out its safeguarding children duties about these girls? And this question goes a very long way. Then, of course, there is the notorious Prevent scheme foisted by the Home Office, where the influence of Hazel Blears was quite prominent during the period while the UK government was still fronted by Gordon Brown. And Hazel Blears, a self-confessed anti-Muslim, racist hate spreader, recruited those 18 or 19 so-called Muslim women, including Roxana Fiaz, who is now mayor at the expense of the Newham, to spy on Muslims. Now, of course, spying has gone on throughout the ages, so therefore it is not a new concept or activity. Spying becomes objectionable when it is done for the wrong purpose. So, when the Prevent scheme was installed or launched, it was done with the de facto purpose and admission that the object of the Prevent scheme was to curb or to defeat or to oppose or to stop the radicalization that was directly connected with the Muslim community. And one of the first instruments and operational stooges and operational colluders for the Prevent scheme was, of course, the various kind of units of operatives based in and around the complex, the building complex known as the London Muslim Centre and the East London Mosque. Now, these operatives have never been accountable to the Muslim community, even before anything to do with the so-called ISIS thing occurred. because the East London Mosque became usable from the late 1980s, let's say. So 80s, 90s, it's almost nearly 20 years before the Tony Blair mounted the attacks on the Afghans and the Iraqis and so on. And the presence of the ordinary Muslims, migrant people, became exploited by these pushers of the agenda against Muslims. And the East London Mosque has not betrayed or let down its colluders in government. And so therefore there is no accountability demanded of the East London Mosque or the East London or the London Muslim Centre, etc. In fact, it is still treated as part of the acceptable part of the Muslim community. Totally wrong, because Muslims, ordinary Muslims, or the many in the Muslim community, have nothing to do with the behavior, the agenda, the secret activities of these many individuals, about 100 or so, containing the elements of the Islamic Forum Europe and the London Muslim Centre and the East London Mosque, the committees, I'm saying, not the musallis, not the ordinary musallis. So the East London Mosque, when the correct history would be written, would be found to have let down the ordinary Muslim, the East London Mosque Committee, that is, the personnel who control the decisions and the secret deals, that these individuals have operated as the longest lasting group of colluders with the anti-Muslim agenda being pushed through the UK state. And these people are hostile to the local ordinary Muslims. In fact, they accost ordinary Muslims who are identified as being critical of the draconian, anti-democratic, oppressive activities of the groups of people operating under the banners of the London Muslim Centre, Islamic Forum Europe, and the East London Mosque. I am saying that they are actually betraying the values and the principles of Islam by treating with contempt and suspicion ordinary Muslims in East London. And that is where the facilities or the facilitation of the spying operation launched by the Labour government, the last Labour government, called Prevent, which is a brazenly obvious kind of word to use, prevent. And that aided and abetted and exacerbated the insult and the abuse aimed at the Muslim population generally. And the last, let's say, 10, 12 years since the Prevent thing was launched, the London Muslim Centre, the East London Mosque Committee, or the IFE, have not gone on any accessible record condemning the attacks on the Muslim via the Prevent scheme. They have made kind of muted and tickly kind of comments just to justify their existence as plausible representation for the Muslims or at the expense of the Muslims. Why am I going on about these people? Because they are the ones who engineered. They are the ones who engineered the project that actually got Lutfur Rahman inserted as the incumbent in the post of the corrupt post of the mayor at the expense of Tower Hamlets people. And Luther Rahman abysmally failed. As I said, the record shows that he is totally unfit for the job, whatever the job. Even if there were no objections or opposition to the idea of an elected mayor, there are, but the point is that even if there were not, in analytical terms, in logical terms, in terms of understanding his relevance and fitness, Luther Rahman is not fit. He lacks the necessary intellectual basics, and he lacks the morality, and he lacks the empirical commitment. And he was brought into the so-called kind of sphere of being a councillor by guess who? By none other than Abbasuddin Elias Halal, who cannot now get rid of Lutfur Rahman in terms of political rivalry, because both of them totally believe that they are the best person to occupy the corrupt post of elected mayor, and they are still at it as of today, Tuesday, the 2nd of March 2021. They are at it. So while they are at it, who was looking after the girls, the children? None. As even the Ofsted report published in March 2017 confirmed, Tower Hamlets Council had been betraying its safeguarding the children duties. And in March 2017, when the Ofsted report condemned Tower Hamlets Council, the person in post in the council at the expense of children's safeguarding was a woman called Rachel Saunders. The Rachel Saunders is the imperialist, racist half of the pair of Labour Party members that dominated the policies and agenda and the narrative of the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets for too long. And her husband, Chris Weavers, was a member of the governing committee of the Ian Mikado School. And he knew, or he ought to have known, that Ian Mikado, the racist murderer, or the one of the racist killers of Shiblu Rahman, was employed by the Ian Mikado School for Disabled Children or Children with Special Needs. I shall go to complete the reference to Azmal Hussain when he threatened Claire Lillis and the council with a totally baseless kind of threat. He said, if Claire Lillis is not sacked, or if she doesn't resign, then he claimed to be speaking for the parents or potential parents, shall stop sending our children to that school. That showed the thickness of Azmal Hussein's ignorance. Ian Mikado School was not an ordinary school open to children, ordinary children. It was a special needs school with a very small number of children attending it. So he brushed past me, Azmal Hussain, and sat at the feet of the midget, John Biggs. And then he delivered that stupid threat. Now, if a threat is stupid and idiotic and ignorant, then the target of the so-called threat laugh at the idiot, which is what Claire Lillis must have done. I didn't witness her reaction, but that would have been one of the first things that she would have done. Laughed at the idiocy of those who were threatening campaigns against her. I shall go to the role played by advocate Anis And Advocate Anis told me that the petition that he said he was already ready with would be presented to the council by me, that is Muhammad Haque. No doubt about that. Because that would be the most appropriate and prominent, if you like, event, presentation. Not for the first time, but that would be the one logically warranted by the various claims that they were making, both during the meeting in June 2016 and up to the meeting of the July meeting of the Hrs Council. So what happened? All the kind of participants that were shown as being kind of present at or among the supporters of the meeting of the June 2016 meeting held at the Greater X Street Center called it's a center that is used for public meetings, let's say. And when they arrived, and when I arrived to take some pictures of the people outside the Mulberry Center, Mulberry Place, Tower Hamlets Council, so-called Town Hall, HQ or headquarters, I found that all the prominent kind of faces that had supported the various claims against Claire Lillis were kind of oozing as slaves, mental slaves, at the sight of the diminutive John Biggs. Far from identifying him as a supporter of the racist behavior by Claire Lillis and the Ian Mikado School employing Ian Devlin, one of the racist killers of Shiblu Rahman. These so-called community leaders, including those who sat along the same set of chairs next to or near to John Biggs, they were oozing at the sight of John Biggs. And Anis Rahman, or Advocate Anis, kind of immediately removed himself from any proximity with me, because he had already been convinced that the petition would not be presented. And he was trying to hide the fact that that was the main event that had been planned and promised. So he said that the petition would not be presented. And I said, why? I asked why. And he said, John Biggs has already agreed. And there will be no need for the petition to be presented. Now, anyone watching this must note every word I'm saying and I've been saying. And this is the kind of evidence that we present, the Khoodeelaar campaign present, and this is the kind of evidence that constitutes our evidence. So Advocate Anis was lying. Because when Biggs stood up to deliver his spiel, he completely defended Claire Lillis and the Ian Devlin and the racist killers in the context. And he said that the council had no role. That was a lie. And Anis Rahman should have known that. But he lied to me by promising that Biggs had agreed. Biggs had not agreed any such thing. And the main demand was for Claire Lillis to be sacked or to resign herself. And the only way that that event or that eventuality would happen would have been as a result of a campaign that would be ongoing. So I got involved in the campaign in good faith, and also in order to give the benefit of the doubt to the others, whom I had already known from previous experience and events to be liars and unreliable. But I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. And what they did was to mess up the whole thing. I attended at least 4 separate days an address in Greater Egg Street in order to talk to one of the people who was claiming to be campaigning against Claire Lillis over the Ian Devlin employment. And this person knows, and I know, that apart from those days, I never had anything to do with actually visiting his address. Not because I didn't know where it was, but because I knew that he was one of the leading supporters of the corrupt mayor post. And before that, he was involved in all kinds of things that I did not agree with at all. It's not personal, it's in terms of principles. And everything I stood for in relation to the things that he actually betrayed the principle of has been vindicated, that he was wrong. So I actually gave up my reservations just for the sake of giving him the benefit of my appearance at his address, and he insulted my appearance. He was ungrateful, he was ignorant, he was stupid to mistake me going to his address as if I needed something from him. I never did. So what these liars did was to let the liars and the racists get away. Why am I saying this to this extent? Because there was no pressure on Travelers Council over the safeguarding the children duties. Because those children at the Ian Mikado school, those children at the special needs Ian Mikado school were betrayed. It is absolutely the case that many children were lied to and theoretically, notionally, could have been exposed to any kind of abuse or threat by Ian Devlin. And that was not acceptable, but that did happen. That many of the children, or at least more than one child at that school during the period concerned, was allowed to be exposed to contacts with Ian Devlin. Whatever the details of the contact, we don't know because we have not got any direct evidence. But we are saying that if Ian Devlin was given the positive endorsement by Claire Lillis, and that was in turn endorsed by the governors, including Chris Weavers, then it is further possible that Devlin would have been in too dangerous and close proximity of children that were already in that school because of their special needs. Now, having said that, we have not got the written and signed confirmation of the details by any of the parents or any of the guardians, including by none of the parents who had otherwise and previous to the July 16 Town Hamlets Council meeting had made various allegations against the school, against young Devlin. But the summary result of all these details is this. The Town Hamlets Council was not only found to have betrayed these children, including Shamima Begum, but it was betraying other children as well. So, someone like Abbasuddin Elias Halal, who was seen to be running the meeting on the occasion June 2016, what was he thinking about the council's duties? As far as the proceedings of the meeting that I attended there, none of the speakers, including Abbasuddin Elias Halal, even referred to the safeguarding the children duties. So if anyone thinks that I'm being strong in criticizing Abbasuddin Elias Halal, let them think about the facts. And this being a video, they can go back many times over until they get exactly what I'm saying. If they don't get the first time what I'm saying, they can repeat the process and check the contents. I'm not making any irresponsible or biased or prejudiced or hateful or jealous remark about anybody, including about Abbasuddin Elias Halal. Abbasuddin Elias Halal was totally kind of ridiculed in this piece. I'm looking for it. Okay, in the edition, just days before the October 2010 so-called Tower Hamlets Council Mayor election, dated 16th of October 2010, Private Eye published this item in the Rotten Boroughs column, Halal Dead Meat, in the Rotten Boroughs column. And it was an item So it says it's Saturday, the 16th of October. It was posted online by somebody in the Voice of Reason and blogspot.com. And the piece was dated on a different date. It's actually in Private Eye number 1273. And it's in the Private Eye. It's a fortnightly magazine. So it's a fortnight dated 15th to 29th of October 2010. And the piece is headlined Halal Dead Meat. Now, the reason why they ran that piece was the still ongoing dispute between Abbasuddin alias Halal and Lutfur Rahman concerning the fact that both of them claim to be the right candidate originally for the post of mayor in the name of the Labour Party. And the Labour Party National Executive Committee had been sent a file or dossier, as they called it, by Abbasuddin alias Halal or on his behalf, which was very timely exposed as containing a lot of inaccuracies and idiocies. And that is what prompted the private eye people to call it halal dead meat. That is to say, all these idiocies and inaccuracies contained in alias Abbasuddin alias Halal's stupid dossier had made him a dead meat. And dead meat in colloquial English means that he is a goner, that he has no chance, etc., etc. And the chance and the goner and the dead meat was all referring to the election, October election, just days after the private eye hit the streets, if you like, or hit the shops. And here is a taste or a sample of the state of decay and disorganization that private eye was referring to. And I read within quotes, Labour is in meltdown in Tower Hamlets, where the party's cack-handed efforts to prevent its own former council leader, Lutfur Rahman, becoming elected mayor of the East London Borough on 21st of October have virtually guaranteed his triumph at the polls. And the next paragraph accessed here reads, Lutfur has become an embarrassment to the Labour cause, to Labour, because of his alleged links to the fundamentalist Islamic Forum, it says Islamic Forum of Europe, which pulls the strings at the East London Mosque. Remember, earlier in this edition, I have referred in detail to all of those. First reported in this column, that is the Private Eye Rotten Boroughs column, 2 years ago, Private Eye number 1219, and forensically examined by Andrew Gilligan on Channel 4's Dispatches back in February. It wasn't back in February. It was actually the 1st of March, 2010. In the blowback from Dispatches, which is the Channel 4 program fronted by Andrew Gilligan that the Private Eye referred to there, Lutfur was ousted as Labour group and council leader in May. He then put his name forward for nomination as the party's mayoral candidate and became an unlikely martyr after the London Labour Party twice removed him from the list of candidates. Lutfur went to court to remain on the list and then romped home in a poll of local party members. Labour's National Executive Committee then dumped him as candidate. So Lutfur declared he would stand as an independent. Shades of Ken Livingstone and the London mayoral race back in 2000. And Private Eye in the next paragraph says, playing the Frank Dobson role as doomed to lose official candidate is Labour's replacement as council leader, Helal Abbas, who has little democratic legitimacy because he was only the local membership's third choice, with 157 votes to Lutfur's 433. Second placed John Biggs, who, unlike Abbas, comes with no embarrassing baggage. Now that certificate by the racists at Private Eye, we shall follow up later. So they said the John Briggs, who, unlike Abbas, comes with no embarrassing baggage, won 251 members' votes. He is assumed to have been passed over because he is white. Abbas, a former bankrupt, is hardly a breath of fresh air, having appeared in this column on numerous occasions over the past decade. In a previous incarnation as council leader in 2003, Abbas won the Eye's prestigious Brass-Necked Councillor of the Year award for pocketing a 49% rise in allowances, I number 1096, and ungraciously responded to the accolade by declaring that eye readers were not sane-minded and should get a life, as published in Private Eye number 1099. During his 3 years at the helm up to 2005, Abbas Uddin took on the mantle of the fraud buster, and police opened investigations into 4 council-funded organizations. Some of the shine came off this when leaked documents from a housing corporation investigation into allegations of electoral fraud at a housing association referred to a certain candidate A, who had used votes from an out-of-date register which included the names of dead people. So halal dead meat may also be a reference to that fact that Abbasuddin got the votes of dead people. In an attempt to win a seat on the association's board, I-1133, Abbas was asked on at least 4 occasions if he was candidate A, and each time strangely lost the power of speech. As happened with the allegations by Newsnight against George Galloway, here is an example of another locally elected councillor in Tower Hamlets, at the expense of Tower Hamlets, having lost the power of speech. P.S. Labour has purged those Tower Hamlets councillors, 8 of them, who supported Lutfur Rahman's mayoral candidacy. These martyrs to principle include Rania Khan and Oliur Rahman, who were originally elected as Respect councillors in 2006. Respect is spelled in there as RESPECK, as a mild mocking at the expense of these councillors. They then left to join a breakaway group called Respect, Independent Party, RIP, get it? Respect, Independent Party, Respect, that is Private Eye's kind of go at them. At the London Assembly elections in 2008, the pair stood for the left list, but were then persuaded by Lutfur to join Labour last year. Principles. Now you see them, now you don't. Lutfur's shabby treatment by the Labour Party, who sought to have him removed as candidate without a proper investigation, has echoes of the treatment meted out to as many as 930 BNP organizers who were suspended without being given a proper reason, except that they might use the membership list to help Eddie Butler, who was calling for a leadership election and therefore needed to secure enough nominations, and that they may potentially breach the Data Protection Act, with no indication of when a decision might be given as to whether their suspension would be lifted, and certainly no right to attend any hearing in order to defend themselves. Those in the BNP who wish to show solidarity with victims of their party's arbitrary decisions wish Lutfur a successful campaign. Now, I have read all of that piece, Halal Dead Meat. And that is simply to add authority to the narrative based entirely on the evidence and facts. As I said, I have absolutely no other agenda other than to tell the truth and put on the record the truth. And so what that shows, that evidence, that Abbasuddin Halal was not fit to claim all the kind of things that he claimed as being fit for the post of elected mayor at the expense of Tar Hamlets at all. Because he actually didn't raise the question of the Tar Hamlets Council failing its safeguarding children duties at any stage. And this is not unique. This is not a failure and negligence and unfitness for purpose, just to be found in the record and the behavior of Abbasuddin alias Halal in the context of the Tar Hamlets Council. All the councillors, including Oliur Rahman, Rania Khan and others at the time, and the liberals' kind of current stooge, Rabina Khan, all of them have remained silent, during the time that they were in post as councillors. They have been found to have been silent about Tar Hamlets Council safeguarding duties. So anyone who says that I make too many criticisms of the council need to pause and ask themselves the question, is it too many criticisms when the lives of children like Shamima Begum and the other 3 children were destroyed because of the failure of the Tar Hamlets Council to take necessary, whatever the action would have been under the given facts of the situation at the given time? And Tar Hamlets Council has not been held to account for that failure by anybody. The Khoodeelaar campaign makes no apologies for speaking out for these girls and these children and others' children. And we shall be doing that as the basic duty to protect children and protect other people in the community.